All right, peace, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm sorry if there were tech issues with the link. Hopefully, I see some of you got it. So hopefully everybody else will be able to get it and go ahead and join us. But I want to respect your time. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you all for joining me. My name is Cousin Nita. I'm a real estate investor and home inspector from Cleveland, Ohio. Got my start in the real estate industry using a wholesaling strategy. From there, went on to build a portfolio, excuse me, of rental properties, started assisting other people to do the same thing here in our market in Cleveland. And that's how I got introduced. Really, I had been introduced to the home inspecting, but I kind of like started to fall in love with it at that point. And so I started my home inspecting journey. And then from there, kind of been trying to tell other people about the opportunity of the industry. And when I started doing that, inevitably out of that came some educational things that I'm doing just simply for the fact that I want everybody to have access to this industry. If you follow me on social media, you hear me talking specifically about minorities, about women, and about youth. We're lacking diversity in the industry as it relates to those three major areas. And so that's kind of like my goal with all of this, is to expose people to the opportunity and then to assist them with getting the proper education and training so that they can, enter the industry and become a six-figure home inspector. So that's why we're here today. I won't be long. This is going to be like an hour. I want to give you some information, give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. You can relax because I don't have anything to sell you. There will be no sales pitch at the end of this. There's no funny business. I'm literally just here to, again, share the information and ask any questions that you have. So everybody go ahead and breathe a sigh of relief, right? Because you thought that there was going to be a pitch, but there's not. So you can relax on that front. So let me know in the chat where everybody's checking in from. What state, what city and state are you checking in from? Where are my future home inspectors going to be located? You may or may not know that each state has their own regulations for licensure for home inspecting. So in some states like Georgia, Michigan, Cali, there are literally no licensing regulations. So if you live in those states, as soon as you can learn how to home inspect, you can literally start. So we got Chicago, peace to you, Guillermo, Houston, H-Town, okay, Miami, the Yayo in the building, okay, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I haven't been there in a while, but what's up, okay? Peace to Robin. All right, so let's jump right in. I want to give you a brief roadmap of where we're going, just so you can kind of understand. Like I said, this is going to be short and sweet. I know it's Saturday and probably have a lot of things to do, so I want to respect your time. This is where we're headed. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a home inspector is, so you can be clear on the trade, the actual job that we're talking about. I want to touch on the earning potential, because I know that's important for a lot of people in terms of, what type of money can I make if I invest the time and energy into learning this trade. And then I want to talk about the education. That is really the topic or the point of this training, is because I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who are interested in becoming a home inspector, but they are concerned because they don't have what they feel to be any applicable training, right? So they're coming in with absolutely no experience and they're concerned about that. So I want to talk about that so that I can kind of calm down your fears if that's you, because you definitely can be a home inspector even if you have no experience. Finally, for those of you all who are here with me today and you stay to the end, I have a treat for you. So the NHIE is the National Home Inspector Examination. It's a very difficult test. 55% of the people who take the test fail the first time. So it's a very difficult test. I put together a note-taking template to help you study and prepare for that exam. So for those of you who stay with me today, I'm going to shoot you an email with that note-taking template. If you're serious about becoming a home inspector, you're definitely going to have to take the NHIE, and that note-taking template will assist you. Our Inspector Flow students have used it and have found great success with it. So that's what we're going for today. I'm sharing with an inmate. Chan's DM me, shoot me a DM. This will be recorded, but there won't be a replay distributed. But if you have a situation where I can help your people behind the wall. Shoot, I think I talked to you on Twitter, didn't I? Yeah, connect with me, shoot me an email, and let's figure out how we could get them some assistance in that predicament. Okay, so let's flow. Let's go ahead and get started. What is a home inspector? Okay, so a lot of times people confuse home inspectors with building code inspectors. A home inspector is simply someone who provides a visual inspection of the main systems and components of a home, and then they provide you with a corresponding report outlining whatever it is that they found. Home inspectors are not code inspectors. Home inspectors are not required to know or to memorize code. A lot of us are familiar, with the different residential building codes and different things like that. But as a home inspector, you are not conducting a pass-fail inspection where you will have to kind of like know the code. That's another reason why anybody can become a home inspector. Anybody can learn this information. So make sure that you are clear on the distinction between a home inspector and a building code inspector. Each of your cities, they have building code inspectors who are inspecting residential homes as well as commercial properties based upon whatever that state's code is. I don't know if you guys remember, but I think that was a couple of years ago now, where that building in Florida collapsed. And the first thing that everybody went to was, what did the inspection say? Those are building inspectors who were supposed to be going out to that building and inspecting to see if it met up to the code standards of Florida, right? I think that they found that it didn't and that people weren't reporting it. So that's the difference or the distinction between a code inspector and an actual home inspector. So it is important that you know that from a liability standpoint. As a home inspector, you don't want to get into quoting code in your report because you could be held responsible for that, and they could start to perceive you as a code inspector. And so if you do it in one area and you don't do it in the other, again, it could be a liability issue. So that's a good thing for us, is that we're not responsible. It's helpful to know, but we're not responsible for any code. Our inspections are not pass and fail. We are hired by a buyer who's looking to purchase a property. And before they purchase the property, they want a visual inspection of the main systems and components of the house. And then we deliver that to them in the form of a report. Okay, so that's what a home inspector is. If you have questions, you could go ahead and drop them in the chat or jot them down. I'm going to open up for questions at the end, just so I can get through all of this information. Okay, so home inspector education, right? What is included with all of this that we're supposed to be looking at within a home? There are 10 major systems of every residential home. Doesn't matter where you are in the country, there are 10 major systems of every residential home. There's the roof, the exterior, your foundation, your plumbing, HVAC system, which is heating and cooling. You have the interior of the home, which includes like the floors, the walls, the ceilings, doors, interior, things like that. The electrical, fireplace and chimney, and then insulation and ventilation. So whenever you walk into a home, you will have your report. Typically, we use our phone or iPad, but we will literally be going one by one through each of these 10 systems to do a visual inspection of the condition of those components. I highlight visual inspection because, again, home inspectors can only inspect what they see at the time of the inspection. So if you have a leak behind a wall, obviously that is concealed. I am not able to see. Now, there are some tools that I have that I can use that could kind of like help me determine whether or not there's a leak or if there's an indication of moisture. But according to my standards of practice, I can only inspect what I can visually see at the time of that inspection. If at the time of the inspection, I did not see any active leak, that my inspection and the report is only good for at the time of that inspection. A week later, if you say, hey, listen, I got a leak, it's like, I understand that's unfortunate, but at the time of my inspection, there was no evidence of any active water leak. Okay, so this is kind of like your roadmap of where you're going with your home inspection and what you have to inspect, what you have to report on, and what you don't. Now, in talking a little bit about that earning potential, the national average cost for a home inspection is $450. So on average, across the country, you can expect to pay about $450. The cost of an inspection is based upon typically three main factors: the age of the property, how old it is, the location of it, how far away it is from your home base, and then the size of it, the square footage. So the age of the home, the location, and the square footage. Those three factors typically determine what the actual price would be. But most often you're going to be starting around $400, $450 and working your way up from there. For example, for me, my $450 base price includes all properties up to 2,500 square feet. So if you have a residential property that is over 2,500 square feet, that's an extra $50 for me. Obviously, more space requires more of my time, more energy, right? Same thing with location. I inspect primarily in Cleveland. I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio, which is about 30 minutes, 40 minutes away. So if you have an inspection in Akron, I'm happy to accommodate you. But if that is outside of like my 20 or 30 mile radius of my main service area, there could be an extra surcharge applied, obviously, especially now with gas, being sky high. And then finally, the age of the home. Here in Cleveland, our housing stock is older, right? So we have a lot of older homes that are 60, 70, 80, some even 100 years old. And in those older homes, you're going to find defects galore because those homes were built prior to our current modern day building standards. So everything that we learn about how it's supposed to be, and this is supposed to be that, and you can't use that material 100 years ago, they weren't going by those same standards. So the older home is going to take you a lot more time. I just had an inspection a couple of days ago, and the house was like 62 years old, and it looked nice cosmetically, in the inside of the house, but as I'm looking at the electrical system, as I'm looking at the structural components, they're old. Okay, and so that takes you more time to go through that. So that is how you price your home inspection. Okay, so you see that if the average cost of a home inspection, meaning if I want to buy a house and I want to hire you to inspect it for me, each time that happens, I'm going to be looking at about $450 per trip. Typically, as home inspectors, we have two slots, a morning slot and an evening slot. So there's the potential to make about $1,000 a day, right? Most of your inspections, they're probably going to be more than $450. Again, based upon ancillary services that you're adding, if you're going to do a mold sample test, if it's far, if it's old, if it's a larger house, typically you'll probably be at closer to $500 per inspection. So if you do two of those a day, one at say 10 a.m. in the morning, and then another one at say 2 o'clock p.m., you'll be done with your workday by say 4:30, 5 o'clock, and you will have made $1,000, literally. That is not uncommon at all. There are some inspections that I've done on 3 and 4 unit buildings that have been $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,500 by themselves. And so that's about anywhere, again, from 2 to 4 hours, my time doing the actual inspection and then my time completing the report, on a 4-unit property. That's, again, probably anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 for 3 to 4 hours of work. So the earning potential is definitely there. And Inspector Flow, we teach all of our students to work to average just one home inspection a day. I'm not saying that you have to work 7 days a week. I'm saying you need to average just one home inspection a day at $450. If you're able to accomplish that at the end of the year, you'll have about 300 inspections complete and you will have grossed over $100,000. So there's plenty of money to be made in this industry. It doesn't matter what state you're in. There are thousands of real estate transactions taking place everywhere. So there's plenty work for you to do, and there's plenty money to be made. Also, as a sidebar to that, if you're not interested in going the entrepreneur route, You don't have to. I know I get a lot of people also asking me about that. It's like, cause I've never owned my own business. You know, I'm really not interested in that right now, but I do want to inspect. That's cool, no problem. You can literally go and work up under another home inspection company, right? So you go and work up under, say you were working for up under me at Inspector Flow. I'm taking care of basically all of the business related. So the marketing, the finances, the bookkeeping, a lot of times tools, uniforms, travel, like all of that kind of stuff. I take care of as the owner, and all you have to do, I'm just dispatching you out to actually complete the inspection. So there are some people, you know, who prefer to do it that way, and that's cool too. You can still make a lot of money there too. You know, you do 2 or 3 inspections and you're done. You don't have to worry about marketing, keeping track of anything, you know, all these different things that you don't have to worry about. There's also the opportunity to work for government entities, right? So I talked about the code inspector and the home inspector piece being different, but once you learn how to be a home inspector, it's easy to become a code inspector. Once you learn how to be a code inspector, it's easy to become a home inspector. So if you want to use this in a more traditional sense, like actually working a job, you can absolutely do that. There are in every state, we have public housing, and typically in those public housing communities, you have to have inspections. For example, Section 8, the subsidy programs, Section 8, Eden, all these programs where the government says, yeah, we'll pay, you know, their rent. Those properties are required to be inspected. So there's an option for you. Also, with each city, we have a building and housing department, right? In those departments, those are where the code inspectors work. So they are literally going out to inspect that a property is constructed in a way that meets the state building code standards. So there are 3 different tracks you can take once you have this information and this education as a home inspector. You can be an entrepreneur and do your own thing. You can go and work for another home inspection company and, you know, just, you know, literally just work for them and inspect and be done with it. Or you can get into, you know, private employment with different companies, governments, and different things like that. So whichever one works best for you, you're able to do. So again, it doesn't matter if you don't have any experience. You can learn how to be a home inspector, and then you can take any of those 3 tracks that works best for you. Give me a 1 in the chat if you're still with me. I know it's a lot of information, but give me a 1 in the chat if you're still with me. Okay, cool. All right, so we've covered what a home inspector is. We've covered the earning potential. We've covered the education. Now I want to get into really the meat and potatoes of why we are here, right? How can I become a home inspector if I don't have a background in the trades? If I don't know anything about a house, if I don't know anything about the plumbing, electrical, you know, HVAC, if I know nothing about that, how can I become a home inspector? I've laid it out for you in 5, like they seem simple, but they're very impactful study tips. This is the same information that I teach my Inspector Flow students, you know, to help them take and pass their test and to prepare to be a home inspector. I take pride in the fact that the majority of the people that I've trained in this industry are what I call non-traditional inspectors. They don't come from a background in the trades. They literally come to Inspector Flow having no idea. They know they live in a house. They know when they turn on the faucet, they get water. When they flip the switch, they get electricity. But in terms of how all of these systems and components work, they have no clue. And, you know, over the course of our time in Inspector Flow, we literally break each system down. And at the end, they can tell you how a house is constructed and how it operates inside out, you know, front and backwards. And that's how I know for certain that anybody can become a home inspector. The industry is sending out the perception that you have to have this and you have to know that and you got to look like this. And all of that is BS. Anybody who will commit the time, the energy, and the money to learning this trade can absolutely learn it and find success. I have examples of that if you're curious. Okay, I could bring any one of our Inspector Flow students here and I could show you. You don't have to take my word for that. Okay. So number 1, in terms of your study tips, how am I going to become a home inspector if I've never done this before? I have no clue. Number 1, reading is not studying, okay? When you're looking to prepare for your tests, if you're talking about the NHIE, all they give you to prepare are 2 textbooks. They're about 300 pages long, okay? That's it. 2 textbooks. You have to realize, while you definitely have to read every word, every line of every paragraph on every page in both of those books, you do have to do that. Reading is not studying. Studying requires you to actively engage with the material. That is not reading. Reading is just like a duty. You just got to read, okay? But don't, spend 2 hours reading a chapter and then say, oh, I studied. No, you didn't. You just read. And if you are one of those people who I'm talking about, non-traditional, and you don't come from all of this, and this is the first time that you're learning this, there is no way that you will be able to learn it, pass your test, and become a home inspector if you are not actively studying and engaging with the material, okay? I know in our culture today, we all think that we can skim through, I get on YouTube, I get in a couple of Facebook groups, I watch a couple Nita free videos, and I'm good to go. Telling you right here, right now, because it's not going to work for you. It's not going to cut it. Either you'll be sued, you'll be out the business, or you won't ever get any business, okay? I've already laid out to you how there's plenty of business and plenty of money. That part will take care of itself. This part, the education, you have to take care of that, okay? And so the study for number 2, I call it the 97 rule. You need a minimum of 90 minutes of study every day, okay? Everybody type 90 in the chat. 90 minutes of study every day. That's Fridays, Saturdays, like today, Sunday. There is no way that you can truly learn this information if you are not engaging with it daily. Remember, you have no clue. You're learning this for the very first time. If you do 3 hours of studying on Monday and then you don't come back to the book or study until Thursday, you would have pretty much so forgot what you learned on Monday because the information is new. Okay, so when I say 90 minutes of study every day, I'm not talking about 90 minutes of reading. Now, you could spend 45 minutes reading and you could spend 45 minutes note-taking. You could spend 45 minutes note-taking and you could spend another 45 minutes going out and actually seeing and touching and identifying the things that you are reading and studying about, okay? If this is something that you're serious about, this has to just become for you. For me, I spend at least 90 minutes a day reading something home inspector related, whether it's an article on my phone, my books are always on my desk. I have other books that I've purchased, YouTube videos that I am literally ingesting this material every single day. Weekends mean nothing to me. It just means that it's a lot more quiet because everybody be chilling and I can get more done. If you're serious about really taking advantage of this 6-figure trade, it's going to take some work from you. And a part of that, again, is committing to 90 minutes of study and not reading every day. Okay. Number 3, simulate the testing environment or practice how you plan to play, right? I come from an athletic background, so I like athletic references. You don't show up to the game and shoot 10 for 10 if you hadn't been in the gym shooting 1,000 shots. The only way, whoever your favorite athlete is, I don't see how it could be anybody besides the GOAT himself, LeBron James from Akron, Ohio. But whoever your favorite athlete is in whatever sport, we see them show up. Tomorrow will be Sunday football, right? So we'll see all of those guys show up and they'll be balling out and scoring touchdowns and throwing. But what you didn't see is the 10,000 plus hours that they put in order to show up and play how they've been practicing. With this, the National Home Inspector exam, it is an exam that you have 4 hours to take. There are 200 multiple choice questions. It is, again, because it's a time test, the questions are typically poorly written. Like I say, it's a very difficult test. One of the things that I was not prepared for when I went to go take my test was I had not practiced like how I was going to need to perform in the game, meaning I didn't have any timed tests, right? So when I was studying, I was just reading through the book and, taking notes and doing, but I did not practice what it would be like to sit still long enough to answer 200 questions, to keep my mind focused. Because after about question 75, you know, I'm daydreaming. I'm out of here. And that was one of the things, thank God I was able to pass on my first time, but that was one of the things that I realized that, man, if I had to do this again, I need to simulate what it's going to be like in the game so that I can practice like that, so that when I show up, I'm not like knocked off kilter, because like I was struggling during that test with just staying focused. I felt like I had a good handle on the information, but I was struggling to stay focused. And that's because I had not practiced like how I was going to prepare. I mean, like I was going to need to perform in the game. Okay, so that is a huge one. Don't forget that. Number 4, use tradespeople. This is one of the things that I did that helped me tremendously. And I pass this on a lot to my students. Tradespeople, see, we are, you know how they say, don't be a master of, what is it? Don't be a master of everything and know nothing, whatever the saying is. We know a little bit about all of those 10 components, right? The 10 components that I went through, we know a little bit about all of those, how it operates, the installation requirements, the materials used, all that kind of stuff. We know a little bit about that. But tradespeople, they know a lot about each of those systems, right? So if I go and talk to a plumber, the plumber is going to be able to give me a whole picture of exactly what's going on with that plumbing system. Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none. We're a jack of all trades, okay? As a home inspector, we need to know a little bit about everything. But what I did as a part of my studying to supplement my reading, my note-taking, all of that kind of stuff, was I went out and I talked to some tradespeople. I was already in touch with, when I say tradespeople, I mean contractors, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, HVAC techs, all of those people. I was already in touch with them because I came from the real estate investing side of things. So I started like hitting them up like, oh, you got a plumbing job today? You're about to, okay, I want to come and watch, right? And so now everything that I'm reading, everything that I'm studying, everything that I'm going out, seeing on houses for myself is starting to really come together, because now I got this plumbing contractor who can like add the pieces that I'm missing. It's like, okay, I know how this works, but because you've been studying this for years and doing just plumbing day in and day out, you have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge that I can use to assist me in my home inspections. I had to do that specifically with the electrical, because the electrical system is where I struggled. And according to my research, that's typically where most of us non-traditional inspectors, that's where we study, because it's like a scientific kind of like situation of how electrons and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, man, I don't know. Like when I hit the switch, I get a light. Like, I don't know how all this works and circuits and all of that kind of stuff. And just spending time, never forget, I had a duplex, right? A property here in Cleveland. And we had to replace the main panels. And it was like, I was kind of peeved that I had to replace 2 main panels and all the wiring. But at the same time, I was also happy because that meant that I was literally going to get to watch a licensed electrician install new main panels, breakers, and all that kind of stuff. And I watched, and that at that moment, like a lot of things clicked for me on the electrical side of things. Don't just use just the textbooks or just home inspectors. Go outside of that. Start to build relationships with different tradespeople who can give you that deep dive on, you know, whatever they are a master of. Okay. Number 5, this is probably the most important of all of them. Even if you are in a non-regulated state and you are not required to take the test, take the test, okay? We are super early in this industry, and I believe that at some point, the government is going to bring down federal regulations, right? They're not going to keep allowing each state to do what they want to do and they not get any money off of it. I believe that at some point they're going to say, hey, listen, if you want to become a home inspector in any state, this is what you're going to have to do. And the states might have their own requirements, but it's all going to be uniform. And if I had to guess, the National Home Inspector exam is a very real possibility that could be the requirement. So even if you are in one of those states that they say that you don't have to take it, I would recommend preparing for and passing it now, so that if those regulations do ever come, you're able, number 1, to get grandfathered. Number 2, in a non-regulated state, as a person who has taken and passed the NHIE, you are more credentialed than the home inspectors who have been inspecting for years in your area. And believe it or not, that matters. That's important to realtors, and that's also important to buyers. Think about it. You know, if you need open heart surgery, do you want the person who said, well, they didn't say we had to go get any education, so I'm just here to do the open heart surgery? Or do you want the person who said, hey, listen, they told us that we had to do this, but I went and got certified in this and that and this and that? You're going to choose that person. I'm only talking to the people who are serious, the people who want to be here for a good time, not a long time, for the people who are looking for a real trade, a real career, something that no matter what the government does, no matter what COVID does, no matter all these things, you will be able to take this knowledge and this information anywhere in the country and either get a job, start a business, start working up under somebody and start making money. Like, that's who I'm talking to. So if you're looking at this as like just a way that you're going to jump in and get money quick, like, disregard everything I'm saying, because I'm not talking to you. But those people who are serious and you like, yo, I've been working on my job, or I haven't found a job or whatever, I'm interested in this. If you follow these 5 tips or steps, you will put yourself in a very, very good position for sure. Okay. I know that it can seem intimidating. I know it was intimidating for me at times, but the job itself is easy. The job that we do is a very easy job. Most of the things that we have to memorize and learn for the test taking purpose, we typically don't need. It's just like how they did is in college. I've literally never used pi or the Pythagorean theorem or any of that stuff. I've made a lot of money and I've literally never used any of that. It's the same thing on the home inspecting side of things. Each inspection that you have, that's truly where you get the bulk of your education and the bulk of your learning, is once you're actually outside and you're doing this for somebody who paid you, right? It's one thing to do a mock inspection for your family or for your friends. It's another thing when somebody pays you to perform an inspection for the largest transaction of their life. Okay. Any questions? I want to share with you, I mentioned earlier that I kind of got like bullied into creating some educational opportunities, just because when I started telling people about it, they didn't have anywhere to go and get educated. And so that's why I created Inspector Flow. And Inspector Flow is basically in its original sense is a 20-week home inspector school, right? We meet every Sunday for class. There's homework, there's tests. The tuition comes with your toolkits, your textbooks, like everything you need to become a home inspector. Like, that's what we do in Inspector Flow. It is a very, very intense program. And I realized that that's not for everybody and it won't fit with everybody's life. And so what I created was Inspector Flow on Demand, which is essentially home inspector education at your fingertips that you can go through on your leisure, right? So I wanted people, whenever I start to share the information about this, I don't want to leave you hanging, right? Like, I don't want to tell you that you could do this, that you can make all this money, that this will happen, that will happen, and then we're like, okay, I want to learn, then I'll leave you hanging. So this is my answer to the not leaving you hanging, right? So we have Inspector Flow Live. Applications for Inspector Flow Live will open on October 1st. The class starts February of 2023. Again, 20 weeks, mandatory class every Sunday. If that doesn't work for you, Inspector Flow on Demand is available immediately. Whenever you go and click, you can have access to all of the classes. The reason why there are over 20 classes is, again, we went through there are 10 major systems of the home. So I literally went through each of those systems, broke it down in a way that you can understand, even if it was your first day in class. The homeworks, the handouts, everything is included with that. I have either myself or a person from our Inspector Flow team facilitating monthly calls, so that after you go through the information, if you have any questions, you can get those answered during that Q&A. And then everybody who, we already have a lot of people who've already gone through the on-demand, but those people who go through the on-demand get first dibs at basically bumping over to the live version of Inspector Flow. So put that in your back pocket. If, again, after this, you feel like you are serious and you're ready to move on to the education, then we got 2 options for you. Live, which is we're about to start getting that underway, and then the on-demand curriculum, which is the exact same curriculum. It's just that I'm not there every Sunday fussing at you about it, okay? So go ahead, drop your questions in the chat if you have any questions, and I'll get to those. I want to make sure that I stress anybody can become a home inspector. Anybody. In my opinion, it will take you at least about 6 months to truly learn this stuff, to add the business, the insurance, the marketing, all of that kind of stuff. But anybody, I don't care if you're a felon, I don't care if you're white, black, male, female, young, old. Our youngest Inspector Flow student is 21. Our most seasoned inspector is 60 years old. And she went through our Inspector Flow Live and completed it with flying colors, okay? The only way that you won't become a home inspector is if like you let it be a block for you. That's the only way. Other than that, you can absolutely do this. Like I said, I have the data and the people to support it. So what questions do you have? Currently in the process of studying, I bought the books, but they sent out 2 of the same book. They have not responded back. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much good to say about NHIE. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. They have ebooks too. Like they come in the hard copy. I got both because I needed both. They come in the hard copy, and then they also come in the ebook section. What's cool about the ebooks is they literally it doubles as like an audio book. So in the ebook, they got a little thing in there, little voice that will read the book to you. But I would stay on them, like hound them. Like I would stay on them. They got to make that right for you. The book set is $250, I think. The hard copy is $250, and then if you want the digital copy, I believe it's $150. Don't quote me. You can go to nhie.org though and get the factual. I believe it's $250 and $150. But yeah, I like the NHIE is essentially, the NHIE test was created basically by a nonprofit organization known as the Exam Board of Professional Home Inspectors. And they came up with the NHIE, like, you know, it's literally like a nonprofit. It's like, it's not a state organization. It's not a government organization. It's just a nonprofit. It's like me with my nonprofit. If I decided that we're going to come up with a test, and then, you know, as time went on, states adopted the NHIE as the required test that you have to take to pass. But I've been very vocal with my disdain for the organization. It's almost like they don't want you to pass the test, because how do you give me this difficult test and the only thing that I can have to prepare myself are just these 2 texts? I mean, there are no videos, no classes. Oh, I take that back. They do have practice quizzes that you can buy, but you got to purchase the practice quiz every time. So if I study, you know, for my plumbing section and I want to take a practice quiz to see where I'm at, it's like $15 for the practice quiz. I think it's like 20, 25 questions. Okay, say I bomb it, right? And then I go back and study and I want to take it again. They're going to charge me another $15. You know, so you could spend 200 or so. 309 with ship. Okay, yeah. So you could spend the $300 on the books. You could spend another couple $100 in practice tests and still 55. I mean, if you got a test and half of the people are failing the test on the first time, I think that speaks more loudly about the test than it does to people. Because how is half of the, I mean, we got people from all over the country taking this test. And most of them are not minorities. So if half of them are failing the test, we might have a problem. I mean, call me crazy, but that's just how I see it. But yes, you will need to be very intentional about your time and how you prepare for the NHIE. It is no joke. This is why I say you got to be consistent, that 90 minutes every day. And if you're trying to prepare for that test and you're going to be, you know, you think, oh, because of my job or this, that, and the third, I'm going to just put in 7 hours on the weekend, it's not going to work for you. It's not, it doesn't work like that. You gotta interact and engage with this material every day. So the concepts, the terminologies, the component, all of that stuff will start to become second nature. Okay. Go ahead and keep dropping your questions if you have them in the chat. Make sure that you are connected with me on all of the social sites. IG is probably where I post the most home inspector information. I also got a lot of free game on YouTube. I just posted a behind the scenes test prep session that I did with Inspector Flow students. That's available for you at no cost on YouTube. Facebook, and then that is 330-625-5286. It's my text number. It comes directly to my phone. So make sure that you are connected. Again, if you're serious, if you're not serious, like just disregard. But if you're serious about this, then make sure that you are connected so that you can take advantage of all of the resources. Y'all awful quiet. Don't nobody have no questions? So let me ask you this. Is this something that you think you could do, that you want to do? Do you feel better? If you don't have any experience, do you now see how it doesn't matter? Like, obviously it's helpful, it's beneficial if you have it, but if you don't, it won't keep you locked out. Can you now see that? Have we accomplished at least that goal? Feel much better, and I'm okay, cool, good. For my ladies and for my young people, I think those are the two groups that tend to be the most intimidated, and I understand it, I get it, because it is a white male dominated industry. But listen, you can learn how to do this, and then you'll end up being better than those old guys. The realtors are out there looking for the realtor. They want to have an option other than an old white guy. That's just the truth. I was a realtor, I know. They want to have that option, you know. So they're looking for women. They're looking for Black home inspectors. They're looking for Spanish speaking home inspectors. They're looking for young people who are going to be bringing different, you know, uses of technology and all of this kind of stuff. You know, also quick plug to the podcast, the Inspector Flow Show podcast. I call it a podcast for the new generation of home inspectors because we're doing things differently now. You know, we're being intentional about our education. We being intentional about sharing the information. So we got a diverse industry, and we're being intentional about building community. None of y'all are my competition. I could stay on here and teach you all day and all night. You're not my competition. I want you to have the information so you could take it and change your life and the life of your family. I got students who are making more now in a week than they made in a whole month at their job. That's life-changing. You know what I mean? And like, that's what really, like, more than anything, that's what does it for me. So is the language of the questions on the test difficult? Yes, the language on the test is difficult, and it is multiple choice. There are 4 options. There are typically like 2 answers that could be right, and you got to choose the best one based on the wording. So yes, they do play those little crazy trick you with the word games, for sure. I just had inspection done this morning. As you can I can honestly say that everyone can do it, for sure. Oh yeah, Gimmer, you definitely got to get in on this, man. You after you start doing this, you're gonna be like, man, I don't know if I would. This is so for those of you who have that knowledge and that background. Like, imagine, you know, you go out 2 hours and it's like 5, and you get paid before you show up. You know, you have to worry about change orders and people not paying you and materials and subs and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that you're here, Gimmer, for sure. I currently assist the home inspector here with building and sending his reports to the realtors and clients, and I've learned so much that I've considered getting into the field myself. It's very interesting, but I'm here taking notes for my friend. I said, yeah, because if you, now that's crazy that you are building and sending the reports for the inspector. So I would definitely consider. Here's the other thing, right? You don't have to be a home inspector alone to have a home inspection company. Okay, let me say it again. You don't have to be primarily a home inspector in order to have a home inspection company. You can have the company, and then you can have inspectors up under you, like your guy, your boy, who you just are basically dispatching, right? Dispatching, because now you have an understanding of how the process works, how the reports and all that kind of stuff do. Like, I tell the ladies, if you think you don't want to do it, like, that's fine, but set it up for your sons, for your nephews, for your cousins, for your husband, for your brother, for whoever. You don't have to, or you don't have to always, right? You can start as a home inspector and you out in the field inspecting, and then, you know, a year later, okay, I'm out of the field now, I just run the company, you know? So there are definitely lots of different ways that you can take advantage of this industry. You mentioned that inspectors do about 2 houses a day, morning, even. How long does an inspection take on average? Typically on average, it's going to take about 2.5 hours for like a standard house, you know, 2,000 up to about 2,500 square feet. For me, I call it, I rough in my report while I'm there at the inspection. So after those 2.5 hours, I may have another 30 minutes to an hour when I get home to look over my report, add in any extra pictures, any extra comments, do my spell check and all of that kind of stuff before I send off the report. So call it, in total, just call it 4 hours, say. But the inspection itself is only 2. The reason why I know a lot of people ask me, can't you do more than 2? And believe it or not, inspections are tiring because you're gonna be walking around the house a bunch of times. You're gonna be up and down steps, crawling in, like it's tiring. And I would say, because like, okay, just say if you had an inspection in the morning at 10 o'clock, and then you had another one scheduled at 1, okay, so, or at 2. So from 10 to 12, I'm here. And then I gotta have travel time, depending upon where you are, I gotta have travel time to make it to my next inspection. And then I gotta do that inspection and then, get done with that 2.5 hours later. Typically is your day is only going to really work out for you to really do 2. Sometimes you might squeeze in a third, but my thought process, the way that I approach all of this is I just want to average 1 a day. So if I do, some people, some of the young people may say, hey, listen, I want to wake up early in the morning. I want to work till the sun goes down. I'm going to do 3 a day for 3 days. So then I won't have to work. I only want to work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I'm going to, book all my inspection in those days. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I don't have to if I don't want to, because I've already completed 9 inspections for that week. So I've hit my average of 1 a day, so yeah. Any other final questions? Hopefully this was helpful to you. Please share the word, spread this. I want as many people to know about this industry and to be to have the opportunity again to get appropriately educated so that they can get in the game, start making some money and change their families' lives. I believe that it was one of the biggest travesties to the minority community is taking trades out of the schools. I remember when, people used to come out of school as like carpenters and plumbers and things like that because they had taken those classes in school. This is that same type of concept. Imagine your 18-year-old or your 21-year-old or whatever, knowing how to be an inspector. Whether they choose to do that for the next 20 or 30 years of their life, doesn't matter. But I want people to know about the opportunities that this industry presents. And I want them to have the opportunity to get the proper education that they need to make $100,000 every year and take care, to make a respectable living and to be able to really take care of their family. Okay. So thank you all for joining me. Like I said, for those of you who came and joined and stayed with me, I'll be sending you out that NHIE note-taking template. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, expressions of joy, feel free to hit me up on all of my social media platforms, as well as you can shoot me a text. Okay. Y'all have a blessed day. Peace.